Enigma Toastmaster. For the table topics, we have 1 minute for the minimal amount of time, the yellow one for 1:30, and 2 minutes the red one. We have 30 seconds of grace period. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
All right, so let's time travel to the past and to the future. We'll start in the present by introducing our Toastmasters topic, Michelle Bauer.
Thank you, Judy. As she originally said this evening, time travel is supposedly our theme. We didn't travel too far with the restaurants, and we did travel a little bit back in time with Steve, back to 1968. But there is a specific song by Florida's welcome son, Jimmy Buffett. Do you know what song I'm talking about? Boat Drinks. So I'd like to go where the pace of life's slow. Could you beam me up somewhere, Mr. Scott? Any old place, here or in space. You pick the century, I'll pick the spot. So think about what century you'd like to go back to, and I'm going to tell you what country you're going to land. Or we'll do this much easier. Tell me about it, and it's a little bit different than time travel. I am going to ask you to travel in time, but a little bit more emotionally, maybe. Tell me a time when things were really easy in your life. Really easy. Very.
Madam Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters, high school was not easy for me, but grade school prior to high school was really easy for me. You see, I wasn't the smartest kid in the class. I wasn't the dumbest kid in the class. I wasn't the most athletic kid in the class. I wasn't the least athletic kid in the class. I was just kind of average, getting by, and things came to me very easily. So I was in a high reading group, and I was in a high math group, but I didn't have to try. So I didn't have to do homework. I didn't have to work hard. In fact, the hardest thing I had to work at was staying under the radar, to not be noticed, to make sure that things stayed super easy for me, and I could just get by. That means I didn't get picked on or bullied or any of those things when I was younger, because I didn't stand out in any way to the people that were doing the bullying. I have nothing left.
So you can imagine if you did travel to a different century, if you wouldn't really want to be in France during the Revolution as a bourgeoisie or maybe as a peasant. It's kind of tough to pick where you would really want to land in any particular time. Tell me about a time that the world was at peace. Gary.
Topic Master. When was the world at peace? Before they plucked the apple from the tree in the Garden of Eden.
Wow, that's a good answer.
After that, sorry folks, there hasn't been a moment of real peace anywhere in the world since then. Can you imagine? All because of one apple? Yeah, the whole world has been a mess ever since then. People shooting each other, dropping bombs on each other, just because of one apple. Well, they didn't take two. Wow, taking 2 or 3 probably would have annihilated the entire human race very early on. Actually, there never really has been peace in the world. There's always been something going on very uncomfortable somewhere. I heard some statistics recently about wars, peace, problems, different places in the world. Believe it or not, right now, despite what we hear about terrorism going on, big time, there are fewer wars in the world than there ever have been in recorded history. fewer right now than in recorded history. For despite the fact that our news media constantly bombards us with problems of terror here, terror there, we're actually more peaceful now than ever. That's the good news. So let's just keep doing what we're doing because we're doing something right. And it's going to get better. Tell me, guys.
Mike, could you restate that?
Positivity. So think back to a time when you felt rich.
Manageable topic, master. The time when I feel rich, I'm rich actually. Maybe nobody knew I had to make it official, I'm rich. I'm rich because I have nice family. I'm rich because I'm healthy. I'm rich because I have many friends. I'm rich because I have plenty to eat. And you can say, I'm rich because I have a very lovely husband that is a chicken and he doesn't want to travel, so I travel by myself, I save money.
You're a sport.
I mean, I can be talking to you forever, and I consider I'm rich. But obviously, sometimes I am feeling down. But lately, I became more appreciative of whatever I have, and I miss no opportunity to mention it, because I see many people that are loaded with money, but they are lonely, they are miserable, and they have no health. When I go to the doctor, they ask me, okay, here is the list for all your medication. I said, I take nothing, no even vitamins. Are you serious? Yes, I am serious. Because I eat healthy, I eat fruit, I have the apple, all the vegetables, I don't use salt, don't go to my house for sugar or for salt, I don't use it, I don't fry. So I consider myself healthy, and people look at me, no even vitamins? No, no even vitamins. Sometimes I get phone calls, "Hi, Mrs. Drescher, you forgot to fill the form with the medication. Do me a favor, write down." None. It's not that I forgot. So I will have many more time. I will tell you more than I feel. And I forgot I had money.
Different ways to be rich, that's
Wow.
for sure, that's for sure. So think about a time, go back in time, think about a time when you felt in control. When you felt in control. Marshall?
Felt in control. Well, I was married for 16 years, and it wasn't that time. I guess probably now is when I would feel in control, and possibly before I got married, I was single. But on some level, I didn't mind not being in control, because control isn't always what it's made up to be. However, one thing that I feel very blessed and fortunate about with the control that we hope to pass on to our children, the blessings of life, that part of control, but we're not controlling them, but that is something where we have some control over their futures. And I feel so blessed to have two wonderful children that have turned out so well. And so, from that control, I feel wonderful. And now it's your turn to be back in control.
Time, go back in time, a little bit similar to the question I asked Gary, but it's kind of different. A time when people were not oppressed. John. Oppressed. When people were not oppressed.
Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. I don't know if that would be a time question or a place question. Because people always oppressed somewhere from the time we have more than one person. I don't know what it is. I think it goes back to the control question. They want to be in control. In this country, we had slavery till the 1860s. Other parts of the world, they're oppressed in the Middle East and Africa. We don't realize with all the news media and everything that we listen to every day, actually how lucky we are in this country. Martha hit the nail on the head. You know, we have food on the table. We can actually go outside and have a reasonable expectation of making it back in alive in one piece. There are all sorts of benefits that we do have, and we tend to take them for granted, because for many of us that have lived here our entire lives, like myself, I've always been accustomed to it. For some reason, people like to control people, and people have always been oppressed somewhere. And I don't know if that will ever end, but I'm looking forward to the day that it does.
We have so much time today, I can ask everybody to talk. You're looking at me scared. Look, it's 1:05 after.
Won't kill you to end early.
Control.
Think about a time when you felt loved. A time that you felt loved. Jean.
Can't walk and think at the same time. My family put the fun in dysfunctional.
Wow.
I have an older brother who happens to be smarter, like Sherlock Holmes had a brother who was older and smarter. My brother terrorized me as a child and actually physically abused me a bit. I had one relative who was only kind and loving every time I ever visited her. I was born in San Mateo, California, in what was to become Silicon Valley, before computers were imagined by everyday people. My father had an older relative who was some sort of third cousin, 8 times removed. Not really, but she was more like an aunt in her age, and I called her Aunt Sylvia. Aunt Sylvia's husband was one of the smartest, brightest surgeons in the San Jose area, and he offered to test chemotherapy. He was one of the first test subjects for chemotherapy when he developed cancer, and he died. So the rest of her life, Sylvia campaigned and opened schools for the blind. And every time I went to visit her, she told me the same story, that as a baby, she knew my parents were incapable of giving me the love I deserved. And every time I visited her, she affirmed that I am a good person, that I am good enough, that I have enough love, and that everywhere I go, everywhere in the world, people love me for who I am and for what I do in the world. And God bless Sylvia Cassell. Thank you.
All have an Aunt Sylvia. That's amazing. That's amazing. Think about a time when things were not going well, but you turned it around. They weren't going well, but you turned it around. Pam. She just gave me the to testify against it. I have to say that I kind of hit bottom when I was living in Columbus, Ohio, in the winter, and I was not rich, maybe in some aspects, but not financially rich. My husband was going to vet school at the Ohio State University. We had bought our first house that was very quaint and old with no insulation, and we couldn't really afford to heat the house. So the wind just kind of blew through it in the wintertime. And I hit bottom one very, very cold weekend in Columbus, Ohio, one of many, when we had the thermostat set to go down to 55 at night. And that was where the thermostat was, but we didn't realize that on the edges of the house, the temperature was more like below freezing. So the pipes froze, and in the process of trying to thaw out the pipes in the plaster ceiling, the plaster went down in the sink and clogged the sink. And then in the process of going out to get something to unclog the sink, the old car that we couldn't afford died, and I'm stuck out somewhere trying to get rescued and thinking about what my mother would say, don't get into a car with a stranger. I'm thinking if a stranger has a warm car, I'm going to dying where I am. So I just got to the point where I said, take my house, take my family, take my car, take my job, go get me someplace warm, and here I am. I'm not sure how you turned that around.
Well, I'm warm now.
So think about a time when you felt confident. That's it.
Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. For those of you that know me, I'm always usually a pretty confident person. You have to have that can-do attitude, because if you have that can't-do attitude, you're never going to get anywhere. I'm always thinking of the glasses half full, and my mom's kind of the half-empty kind of girl. And I said to her the other day, I said, Mom, you have to think positively. Things are going to work out. They may not work out the way you want them to, but God has a plan, and I believe everything happens for a reason. You have to take the bad and turn it into good. Now, it's a matter of how you think about it and what steps you may have to do a little dance around to get where your goal is. But if you have that goal in mind, you need to take the steps and think, how can I get there? And if somebody puts a blockade in your way, you just kind of go off to the side and find another way to get there. And it all works out in the end, one way or another.
I want you to think about a time when you knew you were wrong and you admitted it. Michael Thorne.
I got nothing. I presume you mean not just today, but my entire life.
Yes.
Actually, today would be a good example. I got into a heated discussion with someone over a totally misunderstanding of what she said. And at the end of the conversation, I realized that she had said this, and I was arguing this. And I began to appreciate why she was losing her temper, because I obviously was not listening to anything she had to say. All I wanted to do was get my point across on this tangent. And I've done that in the past in other situations. And every time I do it, at the end of the day, I think, why did you let yourself go down this path of almost self-destruction? Because it benefited nobody. The other person completely lost their patience with you. You came out of it looking like an ass, at best, why would you ever let yourself do that? And I've come to the conclusion that it's all a matter of self-pride and a sense of inadequacy that you strike out, that you want to prove something to somebody when you don't really have to. But all they wanted to do was offer advice. Because you're so sensitive, you took it the wrong way. So, I'm working on this probably my entire life. I'll probably never get it right. And that's why I'm so sensitive when you offer me evaluations.
So think about a time when you were on top of the world. Maybe literally, maybe just mentally, but a time when you were on top of the world. Judy.
Thank you. Because we're doing a time travel, I'm going to time travel back to 3rd grade. Yes. Now, I know I've been on top of the world since then, but that was the first thing that came to my mind. 3rd grade, a time when you're carefree. You just play on the playground. I remember my teachers. I remember Mrs. Miller, my 1st grade teacher, Mrs. Unger, my 2nd grade teacher, Mrs. Banquet, my 3rd grade teacher. After that, I don't remember a whole lot of teachers, but my first 3 years in school were wonderful. And I got nominated and picked by all the students as the May Queen in 3rd grade. I got to wear a crown of flowers. I had a princess dress on that went long, and I had a court of girls that did the ribbon in and out, the pole dance with the ribbons. I don't know, has anyone ever experienced the pole dance when you go in and out, and you...
Gentlemen, don't reach.
I wondered where I've met her before.
Third grade, huh? We didn't even have the other kind of pole dancing, just to be perfectly clear. So, I had this whole court. And what was so exciting is that every 10 years in my hometown of Westminster, Maryland, they publish pictures from the past. And my picture as May Queen with my court has appeared 4 times in the last 40 years. So I feel very honored, and that always puts me on top of the world. So think of me as your little May Queen.
Just want to contrast that. In Catholic school, you had someone crowning the May Queen like every day because you went to Mass every day. Okay. Or in first grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, it was still in Latin back then. So everyone got to crown the May Queen, right? Crown Mary with the little flower thing. And the day that was my turn, I had gotten in trouble for talking, and I was in the corner. She took the whole class and left for Mass with me in the corner. Can you imagine this today? Left the kid in the room, like by themselves, and took off, and everybody went to Mass, and I was just, okay, now what do I do? I'm really in trouble. I went home. So I walked home.
Wow.
But that's just to show you, I never got to crown the May Queen because I was in trouble for talking. So obviously there's one last person. Think of a time when your schedule was really different than it is today. Steve.
My schedule was different than it is today. I always like coming to Toastmasters, and that's a highlight of my schedule for the week. And tonight hasn't disappointed me. I always learn different things from every meeting. I've been surprised by a couple of things tonight. Michelle being sent out of class for speaking. That was one thing that shocked me to the core. And then, you know when you walk into a room and you think, I've met someone before, but you can't remember where. Well, I've learned pole dancing. Now I knew that I knew it from somewhere. So tonight, I've learned some things about Toastmasters. But seriously, going back to the schedule, I think when you have children come into your life, and I'm going to be a grandfather for the first time in life, and I'm really looking forward to it because after an hour or two, you can give them back. But when children come into your life, I think everyone who's had that will know that your schedule changes. Before you could just go out and have a pint or go and have a meal, but then it becomes a big packing exercise. You've got to get all the bits and pieces together, the buggy and the change of clothes and what have you. And what used to be, oh, I'm going to go down to the pub for a quick pint, becomes a big exercise in getting everything together and making sure that everything's prepared for the baby. So that's where I think your schedule changes.
You have a chance to get us to laugh a little bit. I hope you really enjoyed tonight's time travel. It wasn't necessarily a location time travel, but it may have sparked some things in your life or your past that, you know, it's good to remember or to think about. So I hope you really enjoyed that tonight. Back to our Toastmaster.